It's now 10 minutes after 9. This is Weekend Express, and it's time for us to have a discussion. Now, this morning, we'd just like to focus on a subject that drew a lot of attention last week, and this was after the Budalangi Member of Parliament, Raphael Wanjala, basically made a proposal and was contesting SRC's recommendation on insurance being cut down from, one who has a polygamous family to having one wife covered by the insurance. Of course, there are those who say that that should not be the case, and the taxpayer should not pay for a polygamous setup where you have more than one wife, but it should be one wife. Now, according to SRC's recommendation, it recommends that they would only cover one spouse with a maximum of 4 children below the age of 25. So that's a discussion that we would like to have here this morning and just find out what the legal standing is currently. And you're welcome to participate in this conversation. Remember, you can reach us on Twitter, and you can tweet on KTN News, or you can also tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. We'll also open up the phone lines. Should you want to call, the number is going to be displayed on your screen, and you can call in and let us know what your thoughts are. So that's basically where we are at. Again, given that we're in an African setup where we have polygamy is not something that is outrageous. It is something that happens, and there are those who confidently, just like the Budalangi Member of Parliament, Raphael Wanjala, are very open about it, that they are polygamous. They're not ashamed about it. And, where does the law stand in that regard? Now, joining me to have that conversation is Jane Odiya, who is an advocate practicing with Odiya and Associates. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Now, of course, a polygamous family is not strange in Africa and in Kenya. And it's something that some of our forefathers, our fathers, have practiced. But when this comes to the surface with the likes of Budalangi Member of Parliament, Raphael Wanjala, insisting that the taxpayer should take care of the wife number 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, in the newspapers it was written as girlfriends, but we'll stick to what we'd maybe call as wives. What is the law's interpretation of a polygamous family, and at what point does polygamy begin?
To begin with, I think it is important to lay down the legal framework that guides marriages in Kenya. Presently, we have the Marriage Act of 2014, and the law is quite clear that the forms of marriages that are recognized under the Kenyan law, laws which have been passed by our parliament, we have about 4 categories of marriages. We have the Christian marriage, we have the civil marriage, we have the customary marriage, then we have the Hindu and Islamic marriage. Now, of the 4, we will have them again categorized further. We have monogamous type of marriage, and we have polygamous type of marriages. And I think the polygamous one is where the bone of contention is. Right. For now, as it stands, Hindu and Christian are strictly monogamous. And civil, per se. Then we have Islamic and customary. They are polygamous or potentially polygamous. They do have a provision for polygamy. Yes, they allow polygamy. And when you look at it, really, being in Africa, polygamy is not a strange thing. And as men would argue, they would say, a man cannot survive with one spouse. But be as it may, I think that's a challenge that we've seen over the years. Before the Marriage Act 2014 came into being, we had Kenyans bring forth the Constitution. The Constitution as it stands is the supreme law of the land. And the Constitution protects every Kenyan, be it a woman, be it a man, be it a child, putting it in the perspective and context of the Honorable Member of Parliament, Raphael Wanjala. I mean, the Constitution says every Kenyan has a right to be protected. We should be protected against every form of exploitation. Every Kenyan has a right not to be discriminated against. So as we consider the Honorable Member of Parliament's assertion that wife number 1, wife number 3 should be provided for, I think it's also important to compare it against what CRC is saying. They have not said that we will cover wife number one. They've said a spouse.
A spouse.
So as long as you can come forth and demonstrate that Jane here is my spouse, then I don't think the CRC really has to be fought in any way. If the budget the CRC has can only cover for one spouse, then you, Mr. Wanjala, you've said, I can manage 3 spouses. Please give CRC one spouse and 4 children. I don't think, again, CRC has said... SRC has said, we are going to take 4 children from the first spouse. Now, again, it's important. I think it's just good to understand the legal basis and the legal framework that the Attorney General did a gazette notice, which requires that even though polygamous marriages are as loose as they are, men and women are being told, come forth and register, effective 1st of August this year. Come and register any arrangements that you think can be comfortably referred to as a marriage. So, unlike before, now we have an arrangement, a situation, whereby you can produce a marriage certificate which clearly says you're married to Mike, but under a polygamous arrangement. So as long as I can prove that I have a marriage certificate to Mr. Mike, I do not understand why I should be discriminated against.
And now that brings in the next question. We'll come to the legal framework that guides what does the law say about now somebody being a second, a third, or fourth wife.
Yes.
But isn't that discriminatory in nature if the SRC is saying bring one spouse? Because if I bring spouse number 2, for example, why am I discriminating on spouse number 1? Why am I discriminating on spouse number 4? Why not have all of them? And I guess that's the Honorable Member of Parliament's argument. Why not have all of them covered? After all, they are all spouses.
Mike's SRC is an employer. An employment arrangement is a contractual arrangement. When I offer you a job, I will offer it to you, and you have an obligation to accept or reject. Okay? Now, an employer also operates within a budget. If my budget says I can only provide for 1 wife and 4 children, really, you have a right to reject. Let somebody else who is willing to take that. But I know it is quite, it is a thorny issue, because if the Constitution again says I should not be discriminated against as wife number 4, now, and there are laws that have been put in place
to protect you,
to protect me, and has even recognized me. Look at this particular one, the latest one, whereby if I'm wife number 4, I can comfortably walk forth and say, I have a marriage certificate to Mr. Mike. The same Parliament did enact that law, did allow the gazettement of that particular law. So I'm looking at a scenario whereby I will have somebody petition the Constitutional Court that I've been discriminated against. I'm looking at that, but as it stands right now, sure, lawyers are looking at me, but as it stands right now, nobody has petitioned. So SRC has all the rights to say.
Could it be then that SRC is looking at it as a privilege? For example, if I work here at the Standard Group, there are certain privileges that the Standard Group can extend to me as an employee, which I can either take or reject. And by virtue of the fact that it's a privilege, they can also withdraw it. At some point, they can decide, we do not give you medical cover. It's purely a privilege.
True. Again, I think the risky path to take is that we are now basing it on the Constitution. This is a good law that we have in this country. But I think the Constitution is leaving so many people at a loss, including SRC. As an employer, as a standard group, really, it is a privilege, as you put it. When you came to work for this particular media house, you signed a contract.
Correct.
So for me, I'm looking at a contractual basis. And until that is overturned, that is overturned by a constitutional court, I am not seeing Honorable Wanjala and the rest of the Kenyans having a good case. I'm not saying, because you cannot force me to provide for your 4 wives. And then, that notwithstanding, having more than 1 wife, it is your choice. And I think whatever is coming up, it's a luxurious choice. You know, Mike would not tell me that from the word go, you'll make a decision, I want to marry these two women at a go. First, you will take me in, looking at the social parameters, you'll take me in. Even though you are an African, you will stay with me, and then consider, after you brought me in, to add another spouse on me. If it was straightforward that you have 3 women lined here, and you take all of them, you're being forced, you must take, you've chosen polygamy, you must take tap, instantaneously. Take the 3 of them.
Then those become, then they become your wives.
Then really, and then we'll be asking Parliament, can you now help us legislate this scenario whereby the nature of me as an African man has forced me, I cannot move with one woman. Bring me 3 of them, I take the 3 of them, and then I go to the Attorney General Sharia House and have marriage certificate all dated at the same time. But as it stands right now, it is you who chooses. I'll first of all take in Jane, and then after I've taken in Jane, I will cheat on Jane a bit and bring in Esther. And then bring in Esther, again as an African man. Having many wives and having many children has been believed to be a sign of wealth. Really, you have a voice.
And status.
It's a status. You're well-to-do. So I want to empathize with SRC that indeed you made a choice. And you said, as an African man, I have the muscles. I will help you to take care of the spouse that my budget allows. The rest, it's a sign of status, it's a sign of wealth. I believe, Mike, you're able to take care.
And like you rightly put it, it's a luxurious position. It's not a must. It's not a matter of life and death. It's a choice that one has made. And just a quick reminder that you're welcome to participate. The phone lines are now open. You can also do that via Twitter. The Twitter handle is at KTN News, or you can also tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. Let's look at the legal standing of a polygamous marriage.
Yes.
What does, or how does the law recognize, number one, a polygamous marriage? And secondly, at what point does it recognize that this is polygamous? And I'll tell you why I'm asking the question.
Yes.
When it comes to the first spouse,
yes,
it is very clear, just like you rightly put it, there are 4 categories. You've got the Christian, you've got Hindu and Muslim, you've got customary, and you've got civil.
Yes.
So that's very clear. At the point now it comes to a polygamous marriage, where wife number 2 is coming in, do I still have to go through the same categories?
Well, I hope I understood you well. But it is so clear for a marriage to be a marriage, there are certain processes and procedures that you must go through.
Correct.
As it is with the monogamous one, whereby you must go like for a wedding and go to the registrar of marriages and go to church, whichever one that you choose, Christian or civil. Customary, there are certain things that must mandatorily be done. Firstly is the payment of dowry. You must pay dowry for it to be recognized as a marriage. I think dowry is key. And again, I think dowry is another area that can be discussed until the cows come home.
Right.
But as it stands right now, until you identify yourself with the family where the woman has come from, you announce that indeed you are the one having their daughter, and you pay their rights, varying from one community to another. Now, once you've done that, the law, the legislation that I just made reference to, the Gazette notice that the Attorney General did put forth and took effect from 1st of August this year, insists that after you've done all the rights that are required under the law, you have paid dowry. Whether you have children or not, I think paying dowry is important. Once you pay dowry, after 3 months, not less than 3 months, you're supposed to go to the Attorney General and register that marriage. That's when now it will firmly stand as a marriage. And I think...
And this applies now even for the second wife or third?
For the, you know, unlike Muslim, whereby you're restricted to 4 wives, I think an African man is allowed to marry as many as he thinks he can handle. And that's why, again, where we are telling ourselves, let us not put our employers in a difficult position. Because if you choose to marry 10, you have weighed your ability to take care of those 10 wives and be able to take care of the children. Because after you marry, there are very high chances that children will come forth. You may have another 30 children. Are you able to take care of those children as a man? So those are some of the considerations that you should put on the table before you engage into wife number 2 wife number 3, and wife number 4.
All right, let me take a call from Lawrence in Nairobi. Good morning, Lawrence, and thank you for calling. Your question or your comment, Lawrence? All right, we're taking a call from Lawrence, who is calling us from Nairobi. Lawrence, good morning, if you can hear me, and thank you for calling.
Hello.
To your question or comment, Lawrence. All right, we seem to be having a bit of a slur there. So, Lawrence, if you can hear me. Lawrence from Nairobi, good morning. Okay, as we sort that out, maybe let me try and take a call from Kamata in Ngong. Kamata, if you can hear me, good morning. And to your comment, Kamata. Okay, we'll try and sort out our phone lines, but remember you can also get in touch via Twitter, and I can see that John N has tweeted, and he says, yes, I agree that spouse number 2, 3, and 4, or even whatever number one can handle should be taken care of. So, of course, there are those who feel that it is discriminatory for one not to be taken. But anyway, you've mentioned that it's a privilege. But also, where does that leave, or I cut you short, you're explaining the conditions or what the law would recognize as a second or polygamous marriage. And
yes.
that is to do with dowry. Any other conditions that one should meet? Because that's under customary.
I think they are the common requirements that you should be living together. You should be carrying yourself as a husband and wife. And then, again, you're looking for that you'll have children. The two families should be able to know each other so that in the event, because it's a relationship that is being extended. If you have 3 wives, then you're a relative to the 3 families, the larger families. Basically, customary relations really spill over to the extended families. So if that can be established, then I think you
will come to the religious part of it, because there's also the Muslims. They do it differently, and we'll find out. But let me take a call from Lawrence. Good morning, Lawrence. Hopefully now you can hear me. Good morning, and to your question or comment.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Lawrence, carry on.
Good morning. I just want to make a clarification.
Okay, for some reason we're still not able to hear Lawrence. Yes. Lawrence, good morning. If you can hear me, to your comment or question.
Yes, I want to make a clarification in terms of comment.
Okay, we cannot hear him here in studio, so maybe
the role of
he's talking, but we can't hear him in studio, so it'll be.
Can you hear me now?
All right, we will hopefully be able. All right, let's try Lawrence in Nairobi. Good morning.
Thanks. I just want to make a comment or clarification on the role of SRC in terms of either it's an employer or an advisor. As the lady has commented there, once SRC has advised that one spouse, on the issue of Rafael Wanjala, once SRC has advised that the capping on a spouse is X amount, then it is for the employer to adjust and find out how many spouses do MPs have, and therefore cover them accordingly. That is one, and therefore that should not be an issue. The correction is SRC is not an employer, but an advisor, and therefore it can only advise on one spouse, and then the employer, which is Parliamentary Service Commission, adjusts and finds out how many wives the MP has and covers all of them, so that they don't discriminate against any of their wives. And then there's an issue on the rights of women in polygamy and their allocation in polygamy as far as succession is concerned, which the commentator is not talking about, and it's found in Matrimonial Property Act. And it is clear that each and every wife in a polygamous setting has a right. And if really we make laws to govern over us based on our cultural status, and therefore the fact that our laws recognize polygamous marriage, that recognition must go a long way in apportioning those who find themselves in polygamous marriage, the women, their rights. That is my comment.
All right, thank you very much, Lawrence. Let's go to Kamata in Ngong. Good morning, and thank you for calling. To your comment or question. Kamata in Ngong. All right, please keep your calls coming and your comments, but let's start with Lawrence, who has brought in an interesting angle, which I think we had talked about, but possibly not exhausted, and that is to do with the fact that in an African setup, a polygamous marriage is recognized. And by virtue of the fact that it's already recognized even by law, then as SRC makes the recommendation, then the Parliamentary Service Commission should cover all the wives. Your thoughts on that?
I think I concur largely with Lawrence, and the reason why I mentioned that the Attorney General has moved to make sure that we have some form of recognition, a document that you can present. Now, maybe I think I'm an advantage to be a woman to be in studio. And I would beg to speak, besides being a lawyer, to speak as a woman.
Right.
I mean, there are women that have found themselves in this particular arrangement. And what I'm saying is that once I have a marriage certificate, it doesn't matter whether I'm wife number 1, number 2, number 3. The mischief that the Gazette notice is intending to hail right now is a scenario where you find, maybe Mike, you have gone ahead of us, and you find 10 women springing up and saying, I was married to Lawrence. So the mischief that is tended to heal is to, I think, clock out the mpango ya kandos, the girlfriends, the ones that are waiting for you to drop dead and come up to cause trouble. Because as long as you do not have that marriage certificate, I am sorry, that man may have just been entertaining you or running to you for comfort in time he has crisis with his wife. So what I would insist, and maybe empower the women, is that do not let a man entertain you. Please talk while he's alive. Go and have that particular marriage registered. Once it is registered, my sister, you have a good case. You can approach, you can show up, you can go to the Parliamentary Service Commission and assert your position that I was Honorable Wanjala's wife. But in the absence of a marriage certificate, really, it will be difficult.
You'll have lots of argument. Now, let's take that call from Kamana in Ngong. Good morning. Thank you for calling, Kamana. To your question or comment.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning. Very well, thanks.
Now, I think I would have an issue with the advocate in the studio, because I think what Wanjala is trying to do is to make sure that there is equity in all the spouses, even if you have 5 or 10. And in any case, it is not a legal requirement for anybody to marry. So it's a choice for you to either marry 1 wife, 2 wives, or 4 or 5, so long as you do it as per the law. And the law is very, you're not supposed to discriminate against anybody.
Correct.
So if SRC has a budget, say, for 10 million per family, so it should be given to everybody. If I have 5 wives, I should be given 10 million. If somebody has 1 wife, he should be given 10 million. If the other because we also have single parents in that parliament, if you're a single parliament, then you have a budget per family. So how you distribute that to the members of the family does not concern SRC, because, number 1, this is a conflict that we are inviting in those families that are polygamous. And it is African for anybody to be polygamous. We don't have to copy the Western, how the Western culture is. So long as I choose and it is per the Constitution, it's not against the law, and it's my choice. It is your choice to either marry or not marry. It is your choice to also marry 2, 3, 4, or whatever. So long as you do it properly and it's under the law and it is recognized, you have the certificate, then you should not, nobody should be discriminated.
All right, thank you very much, Kamata. All right, and let's take a call from Mugo in Embu. Good morning. Thank you, Mugo, for calling.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you.
Now, I want to contribute on this one. Because I'm thinking what the MPs tend to do is to become selfish in one way.
Is to be?
To become selfish.
Okay.
I am thinking now they can pass a law they register it so that when you want to be covered, you provide all the names of the spouses that you have. You provide all the names of all the children of all your wives. Now, what happens after that is that you will be covered, even if it's for 4 children, you will be covered for the first 4. Of course, in 5 years, you don't expect, if you have 10 children, all of the 10 children to get sick. So I'm thinking, instead of arguing in Parliament and make it look like everybody will get sick at the same time, it is you provide all names of your wife, provide all names of your children. Any 4 of those children can be covered. That way, all wives will feel comfortable. All children will see that their father can. Because if you give some children and leave others, definitely some children will say, Dad loves these children, Dad loves the children of wife A or B. So in my own opinion, I would think that there should be an option or an allowance where you provide the names of your wife, the names of your children. Out of that list, definitely any of them can be covered at any time. Except for maybe for an accident which would have carried all women and all children at the same time. I don't see a scenario where in 1 year, all children will get sick, all wives will get sick. It is that simple. And I think that one will do us a lot of good, and they will stop arguing.
All right, thank you, Mogo in Embu. And just to make it clear that SRC, the Salaries Remuneration Commission, just made a recommendation. They're not the employer. The employer is Parliamentary Service Commission, and it's a recommendation that they made. But I think Kamata makes, well, it makes sense that when you're given an insurance policy, for example, and this particular one is 10 million worth, then you give it to a member of Parliament A. Now, it is not for SRC or PSC to find out how you're going to distribute that. If you have 15 wives and you have 10 million and another one has 1 wife and is still given the same 10 million, it is really up to the head of the house, in quotes, to know how they're going to distribute that.
Thank you. The head of the house. This head of the house is actually the employee.
Correct. Is
actually the principal beneficiary of whatever emanates from the Public Service Commission. Just to, again, say, Mr. Kamata, I fully agree with you that nobody should be discriminated against. And I said that I'm waiting to see somebody petition the Constitutional Court that I have been discriminated against. Now, largely our discussion, really, most of the nitty-gritty is administrative. If what belongs to Mr. Wanjala is 5 million, you'll also agree with me, men, there are certain spouses you may not even want to come near your benefits. Now, again, it's administrative. Until maybe there's a position to turn around your desire as the holder of that particular benefit. So what I'm saying, administratively, let 5 million belong to Mike. Mike, so long as there's a marriage certificate that will be brought to your employer, that this is my wife, that lady is entitled. Is entitled. So long as there's a birth certificate that will be brought, bearing your name as the father of that child is entitled. Now, it is up to you, once you have exploited and finished your medical cover, what will you do? Or any other benefit, maybe it's mileage allowance, your spouse is entitled to it, it is finished, it was 5 million. What will you do? That's now where your ability as an African man comes into play. Right. Your child falls sick and he cannot be taken in at Aga Khan, you will have to meet that particular. So I think we are saying the same thing. Kamata, Lawrence, and Mugo, we are basically saying the same things. Women, get your marriage certificates. Once you have them, period. Once you are a wife, under the law, you are a wife. And
okay, now that we're talking about discrimination, does the law recognize, because again, I mean, it is a possibility where we have a member of parliament who possibly may have more than one husband. Is that a possibility? We've talked about husbands.
Thank you. Now, when you talk about polygamy, it falls under polygyny that talks about a man having 1, 2, 3, 4 wives. We also have polyandry. Polyandry is not very popular in Kenya, but again, as I stand today, I'm waiting to see a woman going to court to challenge that she is being discriminated against. If a man can be allowed to have 2, 3 wives, why can't I also be allowed to have 2, 3, 4 other husbands over and above the husband that I'm having? So as it stands, is again a thorny area from where I'm standing from. The Kenyan law or the Kenyan norms, not even the law, I think the norms do not recognize women having more than one spouse, and I think that is discriminatory.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe as we wind up, maybe you could also weigh in and give your advice to those, well, they have different names. There's Mpango wa Kando, there's sidekicks, whatever they are called, because over a period of time, and I remember there are those who've gone to court to basically battle over a husband who possibly may not have recognized them, but maybe has lived with them, possibly even if they did a DNA test, is the father of the children. What is your advice to them in regards to their rights?
I think what is very clear, as much as we have spoken so much about wives in a polygamous arrangement, what we cannot compromise is that the Mpango wa Kando, so long as they have children with any man, and there is prima facie evidence, which is a birth certificate, that this child belongs to Mike, whether you are married or not married, there is no debate about it. That child must be provided for. Now, again, it is upon the Mpango wa Kandos, the way they managed to come into the picture, to prevail on the men, to take them for formalization. It is upon them. Because the mischief, again, as I said earlier, we are trying to organize the family division. The law of succession has had a lot of difficulties. When persons are not there, they have died. And then you find somebody did not leave a will, somebody has no marriage certificate, and people are coming up and saying, this was my wife, this was my child, this was... So we are trying to organize ourselves. And I think what is intended to be held is the presumption of marriage, which is very difficult to prove. Very, very difficult. Because you have to bring people to prove that indeed we saw Mike and Jane going to shop together. They were living at Karen in one house. They hanged themselves out as husband and wife. Now, all that is very time consuming. And once there's a law...
And difficult to prove.
And difficult to prove per se. It's very difficult. So the Attorney General has said 3 months after dowry has been paid, come forth and register. Mpango wa Kandos, I think, is quietly being discouraged because family is an institution that everyone wants to protect. Once a country has strong families, whether Mike has 10 families, but they are strong, the country is strong. But if we have 10 families and we have a Mpango wa Kando here, this Mpango wa Kando, her main objective or his main objective is to pull down this marriage so that she can step in. The intentions are never good. And again, I hope I'll not be stoned out there. The intentions are not good. They are meant to destroy this one so that she can come in. So I think if we can all be courageous, get out. You intend to marry me? Please pay dowry. Formalize it. And let's go to Sharia house. We get our marriage certificate, whether you're living with me or not. I'll be having the marriage certificate. I'll be holding it as proof that I was married to Honorable Anjala. All
right, thank you very much, Jane Odiya. We'll have to wind up right there. Jane Odiya, who's an advocate practicing with Odiya and Associates, and I think we've made it pretty clear. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and that's where we wind up this debate. Thank you for participating. I can see some of your comments coming via Twitter. Let me just read a few. There's Victor Auma, who says that I think it is the medical insurance policy to cover a spouse and 4 children, not the SRC. I think we made that clear. We also have Kenny, who says the members of parliament didn't go to parliament to enrich themselves and increase the number of spouses and girlfriends. But then again, are we allowed to limit them? That is a personal choice. Musa Ekaya, who says a man should be ready to take care of his family. It's abomination for an African man to seek help for his family's upkeep. Well, again, that's a cultural stand. We also have Eve Minette, who says it's unspeakable and total disgrace to their wives and the public. Whatever they are smoking shouldn't reach the market. There you go. Those are your comments. Well, thank you for keeping them coming. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we've got some international news. Do stay with us right here on Weekend Express.